Hi, this is Dee Dee Pfeiffer, and you're listening to Then Is Now podcast.
Rise and shine, my sinners. When Father Evil starts his day, he gets a little deadly. Deadly Grounds coffee has the richest, smoothest flavor you'll find anywhere. It's sinfully delicious. Once you go deadly, you never go back. Order yours at getdeadly.com. Coffee's so good, it's scary.
Hi, this is Re-Gor, host of Then Is Now podcast and The East Meets the West. I just wanted to say thank you to all of our Patreon subscribers. We appreciate your support as we grow the audience for our shows. You could find our links to our Patreon page as well as our TeePublic page at havenpodcasts.com. With Patreon, you'll get a lot of exclusive stuff, including our monthly pop culture newsletter, cool gifts, discounts for TeePublic, and our special exclusive show, Then Is Now Filmmakers series, in which we interview directors, producers, writers, composers, special effects guys, basically anybody who works behind the scenes in film and television, and get their insights into the process of creating films and TV shows. Also at our TeePublic page, you'll find cool merch that you can get or even give to others as gifts. You can find those links at our website, or you can go directly to tpublic.com/stores/havenpodcasts and patreon.com/thenisnowpodcast. Enjoy!
What kind of a sick school is this?
Uh-oh, Dongo!
Strange things are afoot at the Circle K.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
You got spunk. I hate spunk.
Danger, Will Robinson. Danger.
Oh, righty then.
How you doing? Back off, man. I'm a scientist.
Don't make me angry. You wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
Say hello to my little friend.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
What are you people? On dope?
Stop whining.
I got a crap on deck that can choke a donkey.
Who is your daddy?
I'm sorry, but all questions must be submitted in writing.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
Can I do that?
I'll be back.
A dynamite! Show me the money! Don't!
Up your nose with your rubber hose.
A what? I'm sailing! I'm sailing!
Groovy.
You want the moon? Just say the word and I'll throw a lasso around it and pull it down.
Love means never having to say you're sorry.
Here's looking at you, kid.
We got no food. We got no jobs. Our pets' heads are falling off.
Come to the coast and get together, have a few laughs.
Hear that, Elizabeth? I'm coming to join you, honey.
I'm not a doctor, but I play one on TV.
I love it when a plan comes together.
What we do is if we need that extra push over the cliff, you know what we do?
Put it up to 11.
11, exactly. One louder.
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
We're on a mission from God.
Hi, this is Re-Gor, and this is Then Is Now podcast with my co-host Chris Esper. How's it going today, Chris?
I'm doing well. How you doing today?
Doing good. Did you have a good Thanksgiving?
It was nice and quiet, but, nice, much needed time with the family, so that's always good. How about yourself?
Yeah, same. It was really low-key. My son and his girlfriend came over for the weekend, and we played a little D&D on Friday night, and then, Saturday night, and then Sunday we went to, we took him and his girlfriend, my wife and I, and my grandson, and we went and saw Ghostbusters Afterlife, and that was awesome.
It was awesome. I also saw that on Thanksgiving with two friends, and I got to tell you, I want to see it again.
Me too.
It was excellent. I don't know about you, but I without giving too much away, I teared up at the ending.
Yep, me too.
Yeah,
I cheered at one point towards the end.
Yeah.
And then I definitely had tears in my eyes. My wife looks at me. She's like, "Are you crying?" I'm like, "No, I'm not."
I'm not crying. You're crying.
Yeah. Someone's peeling onions in the theater here.
Right. No, but it was good because, and not to beat a dead horse about the 2016 movie, that had some relatively good qualities. I mean, the four leading ladies, they're all talented people. The movie, as written, just was not what it should have been. This movie, though, it worked as a soft reboot to the original Ghostbusters while also following up on the story, doing its own thing, and still just somehow telling somehow a heartwarming story, which you wouldn't expect from Ghostbusters, but it works.
Oh, yeah. And there was just so many, I mean, from the music to just so many nods to the original film in it. It was amazing.
Yeah.
There were, I had a little issue with some of the exposition. Like, I felt that the characters should have told other characters certain things, and they didn't do that. And that was irritating me, but then some of it towards the end, you realize it was implied or the character kind of already knew it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. I also had a problem with, I mean, some of the nods were great. Some of them were a little eye-rolling, like the detective saying, "Who are you going to call?" And I'm like, come on, that's not cool.
Yeah. Go ahead.
And then the scene following that, again, without giving too much away, because this is kind of a reveal, when there is that specific phone call to one of the original Ghostbusters, not going to say who, that scene, it was fine, and it was nice to see that actor for that moment, but the exposition there it did not work, because it was just like dumping all this information, what Egon did, what Peter Venkman did, and what this person did, and that it's like, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah. Although when the camera first cuts to that scene,
yes,
right away I knew where they were before I even saw who was in there.
Exactly, and that was one of the few nods to Ghostbusters 2.
Yes,
and I'm like, man, I kind of wish this movie gave more nod to Ghostbusters 2, because I like that movie. I mean, I know people are divided on it, but I've always liked Part 2. I always thought it was a fun movie.
Yeah, it was, and I rewatched it recently, and actually, I mean, I loved it growing up, and then after a while, I kind of started to not like it, and I loved it again. And this one, you know what this one does that the other one doesn't, is it's, how do I describe it? From the very opening notes of this one, it starts to sound like the original, and it just puts you in that mood, and the second one didn't do that.
That's very true. Yeah, the second one had everything about the second one felt different from not so much the tone a little bit, but I think more so the music, even the cinematography had it had kind of a different look. I mean, and this one does too, but it still retains that more, I don't know, that more grittier New York feel that the original movie had, that the second one did not have, strangely enough.
Yeah, it's almost like the second one, the image was too clean. It wasn't as grainy. Like, this one was a little grainier,
Yep, exactly right, yeah. But there were some nice touches, and I mean, I think it helps that Jason Reitman was at the helm.
Yes.
And having his father there to say, this is how we would have done it. This is probably not the right way to go. And they would have arguments about this stuff, but good arguments where, one was sort of outweighing the pros and cons with the other. So, I mean, and you could tell it worked out beautifully.
Well, yeah, because they both cared immensely about the product,
Right.
And in the second one, the effects were not that great. There was just that beginning of computer-generated stuff, and the slime on the building just didn't look good.
No, it did not. It's really sad to say. But I think the problem with that sequel too is that it came out 5 years too late. By that point, it was 1989, and Ghostbusters had been released in '84. By that point, I think people have moved on. I think they did it much too late.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I think you're probably right.
Yeah.
And it's funny. I will confess, surprisingly, I actually, for whatever reason, I'm not sure why, I did not see the first Ghostbusters in the theater.
Really?
Shame on me. Yep.
Yeah.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
Shame on me. But I did watch it zillions of times since then, so I've more than made up for it.
Yeah. I think Ghostbusters, so I wasn't born when the original came out. I was born when the second movie came out, but I hadn't seen either one of them until maybe I was 10 years old. So this would have been the late 90s, and it was the first DVD I ever owned. I remember it was so strange. We were members of my family, like second and third cousins, they were visiting us, and they had some young kids that, like, you know, I used to hang with, and one of them had bought a DVD copy of Ghostbusters with them to watch, and I'm like, oh, what's this? Like, I never heard of this, and then we put it on, and I'm engrossed. And of course, I asked if I could borrow it so I could finish the movie, and I probably watched it a dozen more times after I borrowed that DVD. They didn't see it back for a while, I'll say that much. But, so then I finally bought my own, and yeah, so it was probably the first DVD I ever owned, and it was probably the first movie when I became aware that there were people that made movies for a job. There were directors, producers, there were, you know, writers, and IMDb was just becoming a thing in most household homes, and you know, with the internet and all that. And I remember looking up Ghostbusters and like seeing, oh wow, Harold Ramis and Dan Aykroyd both wrote the movie, and they're in the movie. Oh wow, that's really interesting. And then you look at their credits, and oh, they also did this movie and that movie together. Oh wow, I like that one too. So yeah, and so then I started to, so it started to develop like favorites from that. And when I was 10 years old, I wrote a script, and it had elements of sci-fi and comedy, much like Ghostbusters and a few other select movies I would watch. And I remember reading some producer's name off the credits of Ghostbusters, a random guy, and sending him my script, and having no idea how the hell the industry worked. So I'm sending this 30-something page script. I'm 10 years old. I'm writing on the thing, the person's name, Hollywood, California, Columbia Pictures, yada, yada, yada. It got sent back to me like 6 months later. I could like return to sender, stamped on it or something like that. But I mean, I guess that sort of fueled me.
That's awesome.
To do this in some way. So yeah, Ghostbusters holds a very special place in my heart.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Yeah, I mean, I grew up obviously with the original Saturday Night Live crew, which in my opinion was the only real funny Saturday Night Live guys. But you know, yeah, I mean, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd came right from that, and yeah, I had seen them in other movies like Meatballs and Stripes and Caddyshack and all that, and Harold Ramis, I think he directed Stripes too, I think, or was it Ivan Reitman directed Stripes?
Ivan Reitman directed Stripes, but Harold Ramis did direct Caddyshack.
That's right, and Ramis was in Stripes.
Correct.
So yeah, when I finally saw these guys all together, I kind of knew who they were, and so you know, that was just exciting as it was. I mean, I remember watching the premiere on TV with my friends because I had missed it in the theater. I don't know how the hell that happened, but
yeah.
There was one thing I did want to bring up, and again, you know, we're a little bit in spoiler territory here, so folks, if you want to fast forward like 30 or 40 seconds, because they give this away in the trailer, so I'm not giving away too much if you've seen the trailer, but the car, the Ghostbusters car, is in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's in the new movie. However, in the second movie, they had changed the logo where he's got his fingers up doing the number 2.
Correct.
Wouldn't that have been the car?
That is a very good point, actually. Yeah, it's like, what happened?
Right.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I didn't even think of that, but yeah, that's so true. And then also, you have to wonder. Well, I do like the new addition that they added to the car. You know, with the seat that comes out.
Seat,
yeah. That's all great. I wonder when that was put in, not because the movie doesn't really get into that sort of thing. I mean, you sort of assume that Egon made these modifications as he was on this farm,
right?
But it's not super clear, and I'm thinking to myself, where was this in 1984? It's like when did I miss this?
My grandson's 5, and he was like so excited to go see the movie, and he was so excited to see the gunner seat.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. And and I liked the new sort of Slimer this movie had. What's his name? Muncher.
Muncher.
Yeah. That was cool.
Yeah, it was cool, and he was actually pivotal to the plot. So
yes,
that was really cool. So yeah, overall, I'd say we really enjoyed Ghostbusters Afterlife, and I was pleasantly surprised. And I was hoping against hoping a couple of certain things were going to happen, and they did, and I was very, very happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah, the only real complaints I had were just like the way some callbacks were used and also how the original cast was used. I kind of hoped that they were going to be more pivotal to the plot, that they were going to show up a little bit earlier, but the way they did show up, it was incredible.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
So, just moving on here, have you had a chance to see the Hawkeye series yet?
No, I have not.
Oh, you know Hawkeye, right, for the Avengers?
Yeah.
Jeremy Renner? Yeah, he's got his own show now.
Oh, is that right? Oh,
yeah,
that's awesome.
And I think a lot of the storyline from it is based on the comics, which I haven't read comics in a long time, but there's a young girl in it who also uses a bow, because in the very opening of the very first episode, it takes place during the Battle of New York, and she sees him, like, all this stuff is happening around her, and you know, her house is getting crumbled, and her family is getting injured and stuff, and she sees Hawkeye just save a bunch of people and, you know, swooping around on his bow, grappling hook and stuff, and that sort of inspires her to become an archer like him, and
okay.
And now she's, you know, like 20 or something, and the story kind of picks up from there.
That's awesome.
So I highly recommend that. That was good.
I'll check it out.
My wife and I have been watching the fourth season of Handmaid's Tale too, which is really good.
Yeah.
So, all right, folks. Well, we've got well, actually, I'm sorry. Did you have any TV shows you wanted to bring up?
No, I can't think of anything now.
Okay, folks. So today we've got a cool science fiction author on the show who's going to discuss what it's like to be a writer and take us through the whole process and his process of writing and publishing. So class is in session.
I have a bad feeling about this.
How could I possibly be expected to handle school on a day like this?
Food fight!
Hey, you in my class? I am today.
I think you should consider transferring to shop class. Now, very few students are severely injured in shop class.
Bueller.
When you were in school,
Bueller.
did you ever cut class?
Bueller.
Yeah, I guess I did. Sure, most kids cut classes.
Good. Sign this. He's sick.
I get so lonely when I hear that third attendance bell ring and all my kids are not here.
7 years of college down the drain.
Fat, drunk, and stupid is no way to go through life, son.
You lack discipline. As long as I'm here, there will be no grades or gold stars or demerits. We're going to have recess all the time. Woo! Go, play, and have fun now.
Okay, folks, we are here with the author of a series of science fiction westerns called Adam and Go, about a spacefaring gunslinger and his daughter and their adventures across the galaxy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, Zachary Winderl.
Hello, how's it going?
Awesome. Glad to have you here. Now, Zach, you and I met at the Rhode Island Comic-Con, and you had a booth where you were promoting and selling your books, and that's how we got into contact. What was your experience at the con like?
It was pretty good. It was my first time at the Rhode Island Comic-Con. I'd been to a couple others, and it was by far the biggest one. I am not 100% sure how it stacks up against previous years. I mean, I kind of got mixed messages on that, but I had a good time. I met a whole lot of different people, and I think that was one of the things that was really fun about this one, is just the variety in people that were there. I mean, some of the smaller ones I've been to, you kind of see the same, same costumes, same type of people. And with this one, it was just across the board. So it was really fun.
Awesome. Yeah, we met a lot of great people there. And you're the first person from there to be on our show. We've had a whole bunch of nice people, so it was fun. I think last episode I was telling Chris, well, first of all, my wife had never, ever been to any kind of science fiction or horror convention or comic book convention. And she got to meet her teenage crush, C. Thomas Howell. And it was hilarious. It was like they practically had to bring in a shop vac and scoop her off the floor because she could barely utter words to him.
Well, I mean, that's. I guess you can see how people would be like kind of overwhelmed by that. But I mean, they're just people too, you know. I mean, my daughter actually went up and I forget who she was talking to. I mean, I took my 13-year-old daughter with me. She was my assistant. But you know, when things were slow, I just told her to go walk around and talk to people, and she ended up talking to a couple people that were signing autographs in there that didn't have any lines, and she just kind of, you know, went up to them and was like, "Hey, going
Nice.
on?
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So Zach, how did you get into writing?
Well, I mean, I always say like the cop out answer is, I've been writing my entire life, and I mean that's kind of true. My dad is an English professor, so I mean he has some. He actually pulled out like this memory box of stories I had written in like second and third grade. But realistically, the Adam and Ghost series, I started writing that about 5 years ago. I fell off a roof and broke my back and was laid up. I was in one of those big brace things where you couldn't move, and I was just stuck on the couch. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write a book. And so I propped my laptop up on my lap, and I wrote the first installment of Adam and Go, which is Genesis. And I mean, that realistically took me about 10 weeks to write that. I mean, I'd written stuff before, but never really gotten any traction anywhere. But with this, I got it out, and I actually got it published by a smaller press. So the first book was published traditionally. And then with the second one, we kind of went our separate ways on some creative differences. But that's pretty much how I got into kind of like this full-time writing, was about 5 years ago, and a broken back.
Wow. I assume you're okay now.
Yeah. I mean, luckily it was a compression fracture. So, I mean, it's like the least serious of the broken backs, I guess. I like flipped off a roof and I landed on my feet.
Ooh.
And so just the impact, I was about 13, 14 feet. And just the impact of landing on my feet just crushed everything down.
Oof. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, we're glad you're okay and you're here now and you're writing some great books.
Thank you.
Do you find that? Oh, no problem. Do you find that writing, like, does it energize you, or does it exhaust you, or does it come in waves?
It kind of comes in waves. I mean, there are definitely days where I feel like the story is kind of at a crossroads, or maybe a fork in the road is probably a better example. And those days are kind of slow, and I'll hit the end of those days, and I'm like, I don't know if I really, made the progress I wanted. But then you get the days where you're just on a roll, and, you crank out 10, 15 pages, and it's just flying, and you're like, I don't want to stop. And it's like, it's time for dinner. Maybe I should, And those days, you feel just so energized, and like the story is just flowing.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes and goes. There are days where you're just overwhelmed by the muse, shall we say?
Right.
And there are days where you're like, all right, I haven't finished a page yet.
Right. Oh man, obviously, you're a very humble guy. Do you find that a big ego helps or hurts writers sometimes?
I don't know. I don't know that I have a ton of experience with that. I do know that some other writers that I have come in contact with, I mean, I don't know that they have big egos, but they definitely, and I think most writers are probably like this. When it comes to their work, they don't like to be overly criticized. So, I mean, I don't know whether that's an ego thing or if it's just this is my creation. I don't want you tinkering with it. I mean, right. I've never had anybody be like, you peon, don't talk to me, In fact, a couple of the authors, I mean, I corresponded a few times with Andy Weir, the guy who wrote The Martian.
Oh, okay.
And just like out of the blue, I was like, you know what? I'm just going to email him and just, because his email's on his website. And I was like, I'm just going to email him and just, say, hey, I published this book. Do you have any advice? And within like an hour, he had emailed me back.
That's amazing.
Wow. He's like, here are a couple pointers, you might want to try this, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, holy crap, he just, like, this is Andy Weir, I mean, like, he has a movie, Matt Damon made a movie with his, from his book, and he emailed me within an hour. And we went back and forth probably 3 or 4 times, and I just thanked him, But so there are definitely some authors out there that are pretty humble and, pretty accessible. And I would love to meet him in person sometime and just, thank him, because that was pretty awesome and very, uplifting as a new writer to have, somebody who's, has some experience take that time it was awesome.
Yeah,
Sure.
that's great.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, even like getting some of the guests on the show that we've gotten, I've been blown away by them. And Chris has gotten a few, and between the two of us, it's just we're shocked sometimes these people even give us the time of day.
I guess at the same time I was talking to somebody, can't really remember who, but it was a friend of mine who's another author, and I was saying it's really funny because there are all these authors out here, all these books that I absolutely love, but I could be sitting next to this author on a train and I wouldn't know.
Right.
Because we hide behind our books, we hide behind the words. Yeah, we might put a picture on the back of our books, but I don't think a lot of people know what authors look like. And I mean, maybe that helps authors be humble too, because we're not movie stars. We're not like, no, look at me, I'm so pretty. We're like, read my book. Come on, please.
Oh, that's great. What are some of your favorite authors, and do you have any that are your inspirations for writing?
I don't know. My like when it comes to science fiction, my top 3 authors probably have to be. I mean, Robert Heinlein. I mean, he's classic.
Yeah.
I mean, The Moon is a Harsh Mistress, Starship Troopers, Stranger in a Strange Land. That kind of stuff it's classic. I grew up with like Orson Scott Card, Ender's Game, and that whole series. And I like the original series better than the newer kid series. But he's probably 2. And then I'd have to go with Frank Herbert with Dune. And I mean, I honestly think that, aside from seeing Star Wars when I was a kid, I think Dune might have been, the book that really made me fall in love with science fiction. And with the movie coming out, I actually went back and reread it. I think I still have the copy that I bought in 6th grade at the book fair at my school, and I read it then, and I loved it. And I went back and read it right before I went and saw the movie. And I was just kind of blown away by the writing style and just how kind of different it is from a lot of science fiction, because there's a lot of sci-fi out there that is very like tech heavy. Yeah. And I mean, I could pull out some authors that, the focus of the book is the science, which I get. That's hard sci-fi. That some people like that.
Like a William Gibson type.
The what?
Like a William Gibson author type.
Yeah, or Kim Stanley Robinson. Like those kinds that are just like it's the science that is the main character, not necessarily the characters. Personally, I like characters. I love character-driven stuff, and I felt like Frank Herbert, he moved so much along with dialogue, whereas a lot of older authors really love that kind of Tolkien-esque, just narrative exposition that just goes on forever. And Frank Herbert was like, I'm gonna have my characters talk and tell the story through their words, and it's like, I love it, because that's what kind of makes it a classic in my mind. That's what makes it kind of eternal. It's like, you can read it now, you can read it 20 years ago, you can probably read it 50 years in the future, and we're all human, and dialogue and talking is how we interact. So, I mean, that might be the book that really kind of made me fall in love with science fiction.
Nice. Do you find that, I know that writing the end of a story sometimes is the hardest, and do you figure out your ending and you plot out the whole book as you're doing it, or is it more of a kind of a stream of consciousness as you go?
I am middle of the road. I've talked to a lot of authors who, they're hardcore outliners. I mean, they probably have some, term for it. I know, like, the opposite end of the spectrum are the pantsers. The people that just, Stephen King is one of those. He sits down and he just writes whatever comes out. And then there are those who have like the hardcore outline, and I'm going to stick to it. And I'm somewhere in the middle. I always have like I have an idea of where I'm going. I have kind of a destination, and the way I kind of, describe it would be like, I'm going to San Diego. I know I'm going to get to San Diego, but which way am I going to go? I'm not tied to one specific route to get there. So, like I said, I have like a loose outline. I know pretty much where I'm going to end up, but that evolves. It's constantly evolving as I'm writing and as I'm getting into the story. Like I said earlier, I had a character get shot in my last book, or in the one I'm working on right now, and I was like, holy crap! I had not planned for this. Where am I going? I mean, I thought this character was going to make it all the way through, and now they just got shot. Oh my gosh, And so you kind of have to adapt and overcome, and but in my mind, that just gives it more realism, because it's flowing. It's going with, like you said, with, well, what would the characters really do? Just because I say, this is where I want to go in my outline. Well, what do I do if the character's like, no, that's not what I would do. You can't make me do that. So I try to be, like I said, fluid. I try to be liquid in my writing, and I have, kind of a loose outline, but go where the story leads.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. I also am a writer, write screenplays and also short stories, and my process is very much the same in that I know writers are big into outlines, particularly with writing feature films. There's that whole notion of gotta have an outline. I'm kind of the same way. I like to live with the characters and kind of see where it goes. I think that's great. Having said that, I found that when I publish my first book, that kind of taught me a lot. So how did publishing your first book change your process of writing?
Well, I don't know that it changed it a whole lot. I definitely feel like, every time I start a new story, my craft gets a little sharper. I have a slightly better idea of, how I want to write it, in that, in the more of the process. But the outline and the whole letting the story flow, I mean, that stays the same for me, or at least it has over the past, several books. I have it kind of down to a system when it comes to, the number of drafts and stuff like that.
Sure.
And that's something that I have learned working through several books, is that, having that system and knowing, okay, my first draft is, I'm not going back. I'm just moving forward. And I'm going to get it on the page. And then the second draft, before I really let anybody see it, I'm going to go back and I'm going to flesh everything out.
Right.
And so I know that there are scenes that I write that are kind of bare bones, because I want to, I would almost think it's like, maybe in a screenplay or in acting, when, you do the blocking and, I know this character's going here and this character's going to do that. And then as you work through that scene a few more times, then you start to flesh it out and you say, okay, well, what's the emotion this character is showing here? And, how are they interacting with the other characters? And so I have that down, and that grows, or has grown. But like I said, the whole outline, like I'm sitting here at my desk right now, looking at my outline for my current work in progress, book 3, and I know I can flip back to, it's on the same pad that, book 2 is on and book 1, and I can flip back and they look almost identical in the outline, and then just the little notes that I jot in to fill out scenes as I'm writing them, and I'm like, oh, or as I move further on, and I'm like, oh, I need to backtrack and make sure that, I insert this into scene 2 so that, this all makes sense. But I don't know if that answers the question.
Oh, yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because I had I was writing a story once a while ago. I was plotting out something. I forget exactly what it was, and I was just having trouble visualizing the story as a whole. So what I did was I took a flip chart and I literally wrote it out as a timeline in front of me, and I could see where things were going right and where things were going wrong, and I've got arrows going from here to there. No, this should happen first and that should happen after, and cross this character out. No, he wouldn't go there, that kind of thing. So I totally understand what you're getting at. It's like it's like almost like you get a skeleton, and then you put the meat on it, then you put the veins on it, then you put the skin on it. You got to kind of literally flesh it out.
Exactly. Yeah. Because like first draft, like I said, it's the bare bones. It's going from point A to point B, and does this make sense?
Yeah.
You know, is there anything in here that, like, I read through it and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did this character go here? That's unlike them, or it doesn't make any sense in the grand scheme of things. And then you can change it. But then I am the opposite of those authors that, you know, they write everything and then they whittle it down by 10% or 20%. It's like I start with, like I said, the bare bones, and then build upon that until I get to, you know, like 300-ish pages for a book.
Yeah.
And it's my first draft usually tends to be, you know, 200, and then I grow it to 300 by, you know, the third or fourth draft.
Wow. Nice. Now, Chris and I have a surprise for you in the studio here. We've got a time machine, and we're going to send you back 5 years ago to tell your younger self when you first started writing these books anything. What are you going to tell yourself?
Well, 5 years. Don't get on the roof.
Yeah.
or I don't know. Or at the same time, you know, maybe that's what sparked everything. That's maybe because, I mean, at the time I was painting, and I was probably putting in, I don't know, 30, 40, 50 hours a week, not leaving a whole lot of time for writing. And I've always loved writing. It's been kind of my outlet, but it was always just kind of a hobby on the side. And then, you know, so maybe I tell myself, make sure you get on the roof. I don't know. I mean, because I think that's what set it off. You know, having that, you know, that block of time, that I think it was 8 weeks. It was either 8 or 10 weeks where I couldn't do anything. Wow. I literally laid on the couch and could not do anything. I mean, it was a pain.
Wow. Yeah.
Wow.
So, do you have a favorite novel that you feel is underappreciated by readers?
I mean, a favorite novel that I've read?
Yes.
I would honestly probably go with Starship Troopers by Heinlein. I feel like that I love that book, but I feel like the movie kind of gave people a bad taste. I feel like it was so different from, I mean, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was just, you know, it was a fun, you know, bug smashing, you know, sci-fi movie. You know, I didn't expect too much from it. But then when I went back and read the novel, I realized that it was a whole lot deeper and there was like way more to it. And I feel like it's probably, like, out of all of Heinlein's works, or a whole lot of them, you know, it's probably the most underappreciated. And probably because of that movie, people just think, you know, oh, Starship Troopers, and they think, what is it, Casper Van Diem? And
yes.
You know, like, they think the movie and they're like, oh no. It's like, but no, the book was actually pretty deep, and there was a lot going on in it. And so I would say, for me, that's probably, you know, the first one that comes to mind. I could probably come up with some other, you know, smaller authors that, you know, are kind of gems that are just overlooked because they're, you know, it's a small author and people haven't heard of them. But I would honestly have to go dig on my shelf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Is there a difficulty when you're writing characters of the opposite sex? Do you have any issue with that at all?
Not that I've noticed. And I think maybe less because I don't try to, like, really put myself in their shoes so much as I try to capture what I see people of the opposite sex doing and saying and how they act. You know, I try to, you know, look at my wife and my kids. And one of the things I love to do, although in this day and age, people probably think it's creepy, but I love going to get coffee and just sitting and watching people. Yeah, people watch how they interact. How are they talking? You know, this couple is having a fight. What is she doing? What is he doing? How are they, you know, what's their posture and stuff like that. And so I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't necessarily try to, like, put myself into their shoes so much as capture what I'm seeing. And I mean, that's probably easier to do with Adam and Go, because the main character is a guy.
Yeah.
And granted, it's all third person. I don't do a whole lot of, in fact, there's very little internal monologue, if any at all. And part of that is that I have an AI that's basically in his head. And so he talks to this AI. And so it's like, you don't really need internal monologue when, you know, he, like, vocalizes his thoughts to talk to an AI when he's by himself.
Right.
And you mentioned your family, your wife and kids. Does your family support your career as a writer?
Yeah, they do. And
That's
actually, I am really blessed to have a wife who's like, go for it, And I mean, she's a music teacher.
Nice.
And we've kind of been that atypical or roles reversed couple in that she works full time and I have been the stay-at-home dad. And a part of that was that like I said, I painted for a long time, and I could do that in the summers when she was off, and I could kind of work around her schedule and still bring in some decent money, but I was always here for the kids. My oldest is 13, so for 13 years now I've been a stay-at-home dad. And I write when I can, and it's gotten easier now. The kids are all in school, but I drop them off at school and I come home, I write, get my 6 hours of writing in, and then pick them up from school and make sure I'm here. And I mean, and we both, both my wife and I have really kind of felt that is something that is really, really important for kids, is having, parents at home and all that. So
that's great.
Hello, this is Rod Barnett. I'm the host of The Bloody Pit, the podcast that examines films from across the decades. On The Bloody Pit, we have several ongoing series of shows within the show focused on specific things in genre cinema that I and my co-hosts find fascinating. There's a long-running series focused on Italian maestro Antonio Margheriti's films from the 1960s all the way up through 1990. There's an on-again, off-again series focused on 1970s science fiction films. There's an in-depth look at the Western movies that William Castle made before he struck out on his own and became the horror auteur that we know and love. A look at the classic Coffin Joe films from Brazil. And our long-term project to look at every Universal horror film made in the 1940s. That's a long project, people. It's going to take us a long time. Sprinkled in amongst those are various other episodes focused on other stranger areas of cinema, like Lucio Fulci, Dario Argento, and even some obscure British crime films from time to time. So join me and my rotating crew of co-hosts as we examine the stranger side of cinema through an exploitation lens. Except when we don't? Yeah, you never really know exactly what to expect on The Bloody Pit. So join me for The Bloody Pit.
Prepare for a spine-tingling, nerve-shattering podcast featuring all your favorite monsters. You won't believe your ears when you listen to Monster Kid Radio. Here are your hosts, Derek M. Cook, and his ever-rotating stable of guests discuss your favorite classic and sometimes not-so-classic monster movies. Subscribe to Monster Kid Radio through iTunes or Stitcher, or visit monsterkidradio.net before the next weekly episode of Monster Kid Radio. Go through the archives for interviews with Sarah Karloff, Victoria Price, and Joel Hodgson. Listen to discussions about movies like Creature from the Black Lagoon, Island of Terror, and King Kong. And don't forget convention coverage from Monster Bash and the H.P. Lovecraft Film Festival. Classic monsters, modern talk, and the head of Rondo Hatton. Only on Monster Kid Radio.
Shark Bites Podcast. It's the greatest show in history. From the Dorkening Network, hosted by a nerd who's named Patsy. From movie reviews to tips on surviving the coronavirus, Shark Bites has it all. Follow us on Facebook and suggest topics at sharkbitespod@gmail.com. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Are you a lifelong fan of General Hospital?
Are you a new fan who wants to know more about the history of the show?
Do you enjoy talking about the show with others?
Do you find yourself yelling at the TV?
Is your self-care an hour a day in Port Charles?
If so, we invite you to join hosts
Amanda Kimmel
and Shannon Coach at the place where all the hidden conversations take place and secrets are revealed.
Meet us at Pier 54,
a General Hospital fan podcast.
Do you have a scene that you wrote that you found that was the hardest to write?
I don't know that I've had, like I do have, when I hit that fork in the road and I'm kind of trying to decide, okay, like right now I'm sitting on a scene where, and I've kind of figured it out in the past couple of days, but I was sitting on the scene where Adam meets this older couple. They're probably, 50s, late 50s, early 60s. And the guys, it's a typical farm family. And I was sitting there and I was like, I don't want to keep going because I feel like I need action right now. Mm-hmm. But he's met this older couple. So is he going to get in this gunfight with an old couple? And I was like, that doesn't really make sense. But but what if they're more than just an old couple? I don't know. What if they're after? I don't know. And so I'm not going to say I have trouble. I don't really get writer's block, but I do get this kind of okay, I've got two very viable, storylines that I could go, but whichever way I go, it's going to change the outcome. And so I take my time with those, and it's right. I'm not going to say that they're hard, but I take my time because I want to get it right. Sure. And I want it to be believable, and at the same time, with this, one of the big things I was thinking was, why can't he just run into a normal couple and have breakfast with them and just talk to them? He's shooting everything up all over the place. Wouldn't it be a nice counterpoint to have a peaceful breakfast? If he and his daughter have a peaceful breakfast with this older couple, and just kind of discuss what's going on this massive ship, and I was like, that could work, and so.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and when you do hit those forks in the road, do you find that inspiration comes sort of randomly, in the middle of the night, you have to get up and write it down, or is it more or is it I guess when do you find inspiration comes to you the most? Is I guess what I'm trying to ask.
I would say when I'm in a story. Mm-hmm. The shower. When I'm standing in the shower and I'm just kind of zoning out, and that's where, when I'm working on a story, that's where I will just kind of let my brain go and see where kind of go down different storylines. No, I do have what I call my dream journal, and my wife refuses to read it. She read the first couple pages and she was like, oh my gosh. But that's that is a journal that I keep beside my bed where, I'll have crazy dreams and I'll jump up in the middle of the night and I'll write something down. And, actually most of my short stories have come from just really bizarre dreams that I've had. And so the random stories, dreams, when I'm working on a story, showers.
That's cool. And to that point, it makes me think of sometimes, in the past when I was writing something, I always found it hard to just sit there by myself as if I'm writing in a vacuum. And there were times where I would have to bounce ideas off of people to sort of get that particular scene or whatever going. Have you ever had to do that?
I do with my dad sometimes. Because like I said, he's retired now, but was an English professor. He has his PhD in creative writing from NYU. And so I'll call him up and be like, Dad, this is what I'm looking at. What do you think? And he's very good at not forcing anything, but just kind of presenting options and letting me work through stuff and just kind of listening. And that's probably from 35 plus years of working with students writing and trying to help them figure themselves out. And the other thing I do is I pretty regularly have coffee with friends and stuff. Like I said, I go down to the coffee shop and whatnot and just talk. And it might not even be necessarily talking about what I'm working on right now.
Right.
But it is amazing to me how just talking and, kind of how sometimes that will spark a thought in my head that I didn't see coming. And, we can be talking about, the Pats, or we can be talking about COVID or whatever, and or politics, or just, the weather, for crying out loud. And if you talk about the right thing at the right time, for me, it can spark just a little thought, and I'll, jot something down on a napkin, or, put it in my phone and come back to it later. And I mean, just conversation for me really helps creativity flow.
Yeah. That's awesome. I wanted to jump back. You had mentioned inner monologue before, and how the character of Adam doesn't necessarily have one in the traditional sense because of the AI in his head. And you'd also mentioned Dune, so I wanted to just quickly pick your brain. I haven't seen the new Dune film yet, but I did see the original, the David Lynch version. And in that movie, because, in a novel, you get into the characters' heads all the time. But to translate that to translate that to the screen is very difficult. But I felt that David Lynch did it in a great way, where you kind of heard their inner monologue as a whisper. What did you think of that choice?
Well, to be completely honest, I have not seen that movie in decades. It's on my list. Like, I had wanted to go back and rewatch it before I saw the new one, and then I just never got around to it. The clips I've seen, because I did watch, some like YouTube comparisons of the new and the old, and I feel like it's like one of those things where how like sometimes things just don't age super well.
Yeah.
And it's like, and like with movies and stuff, where you watch it and you watched it as a kid and you're like, oh my gosh, this was the most amazing thing. And then now with all the CG and everything else, you go back and you watch it and you're like, oh my gosh, that's so clunky. I feel like things have been streamlined more. And so like when the David Lynch one came out, in comparison to, contemporary stuff, it worked. And, with the inner monologues in the book, I feel like it worked. I feel like people today are, much more instant gratification. And so to have a long internal monologue or overdubbed monologue that they could, I don't remember if they picked it up directly from the book or not, but I feel like people today are like, oh my gosh, he's talking for, 2 minutes. I can't take this. I need some action, and so I feel like it might be the kind of thing that it worked a little better back then, and then today it's not quite as it feels a little clunky now. But it's also, that was part of the book. I mean, the internal monologue, the internal thought process was part of it. And so it's like, how do you translate that onto the screen, but do it in a way in smaller snippets so that, people are not overwhelmed by it.
Right. I just remember as a kid, like my parents took me to see that. Of course, my mother hated it, but, I just remember going, wow, that's a great way of doing it. I would have never thought to do that. At the time, I really loved it.
Well, I mean, it realistically almost felt Shakespearean, with the big, like in Shakespeare when they go off and like almost like come out of their scene to go some big, what do they call it, soliloquy,
Right.
And it's like, well, there are people standing back there. You're like, well, what do you think would happen in real life if like I'm at a party or something and I go over and I'm like, oh, and I'm just going to go off on a 5-minute like speech to nobody, to myself, It's like, I might come across as a little weird, I think. I don't know. People might look at me funny. But,
that's funny. Well, real quick, I just wanted to mention too, when you were saying about how, people don't understand people talking, hearing the inner monologue out loud, and that reminded me of a Simpsons episode where he complained about that show, The Wonder Years, because some kid was talking through the whole show.
yeah. I mean, it's like I said, it's one of those things where, back then, it worked more so, although there is the new Wonder Years. I haven't watched that, so maybe they're breaking out the new or the old internal monologue all over again.
Right.
Bring back internal monologue. I don't know.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about your book series, Adam, and go?
All right. Well, Adam and Go is pretty much just a space adventure. I mean, it's a space western in that he is a gunslinger. And the first book, basically his entire clan, which I call him Hans in my book, which is kind of a tip of the hat to the old Lone Wolf and Cub. It gets destroyed. He goes on the run. He saves his 2-year-old daughter, and they basically jump on a ship and just take off. And everybody's trying to get him, and so he has to put a crew together to stay alive. And then he's a gunslinger. So what does he do? He picks up jobs, odd jobs, bounty hunters or protecting people. And the first book is actually kind of that old Seven Samurai trope, in that there's some miners that come to ask him to come protect them because they've heard that he's really fearsome or something. But and in the meantime he's putting together this crew that I really love the crew. They're just kind of all over the place, and then it's kind of a space adventure. And then the second book is kind of my sci-fi adaptation of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly.
Oh, nice.
In that there is, they're going for a treasure. Adam is, happy to not, but it just kind of falls into his lap, and he's like, crap, this could be worth, this could be retirement if we go for it. And the crew is like, yeah, we should go for it. So they're going for it. There is a, I'm never sure how much I want to give away.
Yeah.
there is a clear bad guy, who is an Imperial officer who is kind of going rogue because she finds out about this treasure, and she's like, I'm gonna get there first, and then I'm gonna retire and go buy a planet and live on it. But I don't care who I kill to get this treasure because I have, the weight of the Empire behind me. And then there is this. This is where there's a disgraced kind of spy, shall we say, who is I think a really fun character. She was really fun to write. And she is the ugly in that you're never quite sure which side she's on. Sometimes she's working with Adam, and sometimes she just ditches him because she thinks she can slip away and get the treasure on her own. And so there's always that kind of contention of, do I trust her? Do I not trust her? There are points where I need her because she has information, I have information. So it's a fun, treasure hunt. And the crew's all together, and they're, getting into trouble, shall we say.
Nice.
And,
nice.
The books were originally kind of a fusion of, I took some inspiration from, I don't know if you've ever read the Lone Wolf and Cub manga or seen the old samurai movies.
Yeah,
but it's a very, so it's the same kind of backstory in that, the Emperor's Lord High Executioner is betrayed, and he goes on the run with his 2-year-old son. I was like, that would be so much fun in space. It's just like, like samurai movies and westerns, they're so interchangeable. So I was like, I could do sci-fi, I could pull that. I love Firefly, I love the crew dynamic. And so I wanted to pull all of that into one story, and that's kind of where Adam and Go came from. That is the seeds that grew into Adam and Go.
That's nice. That's awesome. Yeah, we have another show that we do. I do it with another co-host called The East Meets the West, and we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti westerns, and we'll do one of each in every episode. And we found so many amazing similarities and parallels between the kung fu films from the Shaw Brothers and the spaghetti westerns, and you see a lot of that, like in The Mandalorian, for example.
Mm-hmm.
There's elements of both.
Well, yeah, like I was saying, they are very interchangeable because they tend to focus on the lone warrior. Be that a gunslinger or a samurai or a kung fu master. They tends to focus on that. And the number, you're absolutely right. The number of movies that are basically mirror images of each other, one with a cowboy and one with an Asian warrior, it's like pretty much like everything is there, you know. And even beyond that, you know, it because now it's starting to travel over into, you know, the sci-fi genre, and that's where you get, you know, the space western. And what's interesting about the space western is that it's a much bigger genre than people really think. Right. And it's the kind of thing where people watch stuff not even realizing it, because you're absolutely right. The Mandalorian. I mean, it's the lone gunslinger. Realistically, Star Wars is a space western because, I mean, how much of it's set on the frontier? How many times are they, you know, flying clunky, breaking down spaceships, you know, or right. You know, right. And I mean, how many times did they have to punch something in the Millennium Falcon to get it to work, you know? But it's just it goes back further than that, you know. I was reading. Where was I reading? I don't even remember. But they were comparing, was it Wagon Train? I think it was an old Western TV show to Battlestar Galactica.
Oh yeah.
Like those two are they're you know, and it's like that's like they overlap so much, and people don't even realize it because they're just like, oh look, spaceships. It's something completely different, and it's like, but.
Well, and it's funny that
really?
you brought that up because I have those in my notes as well, because when Gene Roddenberry was developing Star Trek, the network told him they wanted Wagon Train in space.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't really deliver that. He gave them, you know, cowboys on the frontier, but he didn't quite give them Wagon Train. But I hadn't even considered that Battlestar Galactica is more of a parallel to Wagon Train than Star Trek, far more.
Yeah.
You know, the ragtag fleet fighting against the Cylons, and you know, there's so many good ones like Outland with Sean Connery. That's basically High Noon.
Yep. It's just that's what I'm saying. Like the overlap, there's so much overlap, and people don't even think about how science fiction and you know westerns, you know, and samurai movies. I tend to go to samurai movies because I'm a fan of those.
Yeah.
But I love kung fu movies too. But just how many parallels there are between those genres, you know, and it's just, I mean, I could come up with, you know, half a dozen more off the top of my head right now that, you know, are there.
Right.
You know, and not necessarily even westerns, but like you go, is it Yojimbo, the Akira Kurosawa movie?
Yep.
And Last Man Standing.
Right.
With Bruce Willis. You know, set in the 30s.
Yeah,
Prohibition, right. And you know, but it's the same story. So.
Yeah. I mean, even John Carpenter's films, you know, Ghosts of Mars, and if you go back, Assault on Precinct 13, those are his westerns.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, so many good ones out there. You know, as we were starting the show talking about space westerns, I was trying to rack my brain, and maybe you guys can help me out. There was a cartoon, and it's not Brave Star. I remember Brave Star, but there was a cartoon probably in the late 80s, early 90s. It was an American show, I believe, but it was done with Japanese animators. So it was at that point where, like with real Ghostbusters, the American animation was starting to get much better and more realistic and less cartoony. And it was just this space western, and it was about these cowboys. Do you guys remember that at all?
Is it Saber Rider?
Maybe. I remember now. One of the characters was Shane Gooseman.
I don't remember. I just remember because I was like Saber Rider was like the same kind of time period as like Thundercats and Silverhawks and all that. And it was like you're saying much more kind of there was much more of an anime kind of characteristic to the animation.
Right. I'm looking at that now. No, that's definitely Japanese Saber Rider. That's not the one. Saber Rider and the Star Sheriffs, but it was very similar.
Because there was Outlaw Star, but I'm pretty sure that was anime. I'm trying to think.
I don't know. Oh, Galaxy Rangers. That's what it was.
Okay. All right. I'd have to look that up. That's not ringing a bell, but
yeah. If you look at that, I just remember really enjoying that. And there's, you know, I just remember this one character, Shane. He's, I don't know, this guy's. He's walking away from this bad guy, and the guy goes, "I didn't catch your name," and he goes, "I didn't throw it."
That's so Clint Eastwood right there.
Yeah, exactly. I wish I looked it up ahead of time. I apologize. I didn't off the top of my head. Shame on me. I have to turn in my nerd card now.
Shame. Shame. Shame.
So do you or have you self-published?
Yeah, book 2 is, well, actually, book 1 was self-published when I first did it, and then I was picked up by a smaller independent publishing company. And then book 2, which is Trinity, is self-published again. It's back with Amazon.
Nice.
So, I mean, it's I don't have the pull of the big publishing companies, but I think I put out a pretty solid book, pretty solid story. I have yet to have anybody read it and be like, "This is garbage. This is very poorly written." Blah, blah, blah. I mean, it definitely helps that, I'll go back to my dad again. My dad always reads everything. Everything I write, I run it through him. So it's, I've got an in-family, kind of storyboard editor. So.
Yeah, and your books have all 5-star ratings on Amazon right now, so that's really awesome.
Yeah. And the best part about that is that, I know some of those people, but about half of them I don't.
That's great.
So, getting 5-star ratings from people you don't know is honestly worth more than, the ones you do.
So how did you go about that? When you first were, got the idea of writing a book, did you write it first and then try to figure out how to publish it, or were you kind of working on that simultaneously?
I wrote it first, got it all, 3 drafts in, and then started shopping around for an agent, and never had any luck with that. And I even went to a couple of the big publishing companies will have open submissions, and I tried that and didn't have any luck. So I was like, you know what? I'm not just going to sit on it and hope that 10 years down the line I'm going to find somebody. And so I looked into self-publishing and realized that Amazon, their Kindle Direct Publishing, is super user-friendly.
It is.
And I mean, a couple people actually at the Rhode Island Comic Con asked me about, how do you get self-published? How do you do that? And I was like, dude, check out Kindle Direct Publishing, because it's, they streamline everything and they make it super easy. Now, the downside to that is some self-published stuff you find is absolute garbage. It's because if you can put a Word document together, you can publish it. But it's I've read a few. But you can. It's really easy, and actually the royalties are better than you get through a big publishing company. So I'm not complaining. I'm quite happy. If Orbit or Tor or one of those big companies called me up tomorrow and said, "Hey, we want to publish your book," I would 100% jump at the chance. But I am perfectly content right now with Amazon and everything they offer.
And is there I don't know what the word is I'm looking for. I know that it's really easy to publish through if it's just a digital copy, but you have physical copies of the book. Is that a little bit more difficult to do through Amazon?
There's a little bit more because you have to spend a few hours going through a formatting process where you make sure that it's going to look right on the page.
Yeah.
Because you don't want it to look goofy. But realistically, it's a couple more hours, and you just you upload it. They actually have a formatting software thing that you download, and you put your manuscript in it, and then you can play with the fonts and you can play with the sizes and make sure everything looks right.
Oh, that's good. That's good.
Yeah, and then it's print on demand too, which is really nice because from what I understand, I've never had to do this, but a decade or two ago, if you wanted to self-publish, you had to go to a publishing company and you would purchase 100 copies of your book,
right,
and then you would have to sell it. And there's no overhead on this unless I'm buying books for Comic-Cons and stuff. If I'm doing that, I get them ahead of time and I do have to pay for them then. But anybody that orders a copy off of Amazon, they print it up right then and send it out. So I don't have to sit on 5,000 copies of my book.
And are they charging you up front for it, or how does that work?
Not for ordered copies. No. If I get author copies, like I'm going to take them to a convention, yeah, I have to pay for them up front, and then they send me, boxes of books. But for anything off of, anything that people order from Amazon, physical copies or ebooks, I don't have to pay anything up front. They keep track of it, and they send me a royalty. They direct deposit royalties at the end of the month. So
wow, that's great.
Yeah.
What do you find is the best way to market your book?
That is the $1 million question. Realistically, people have said, use social media, but that only goes so far. Personally, I think the best way to market my book and get it in the hands of people that would otherwise never even consider it is the conventions. Honestly, because I'm selling, 20, 30 plus copies, and I'm getting to talk to people. And the other nice thing about it is, I'll talk to people, and my sales always kind of bump up at the week or two after, because people have seen me, they've talked to me. They might not have bought my book at the convention, but they go home, they look me up online. I have a website, and they go through that and they read some of my stuff, and sometimes they order my book. So I know Amazon does advertising stuff, but I haven't seen a ton of success from that, so I don't know. But then again, I am not a huge self-published author, so
Right.
I say that because I know that there are self-published authors on Amazon that have 25 books, and you have 25 books available. You're just gonna it's like throwing a bigger net out there. You're bound to catch more people's attention with more merchandise than just 2 books. So
right.
I'm working towards that. I'm trying.
Nice.
Yeah, that's great. Well, as I mentioned too, I've had some experience with self-publishing 2 very small books, and I always found the most difficult thing has been the marketing part. Would you say that is the most difficult, or is there something else that you find more difficult than that when it comes to self-publishing?
Nope. Oh, you're absolutely right. It's the marketing.
Oh yeah.
It's, how do you get your book in front of, people who otherwise would not see it?
Sure.
Yeah. There are options. You can take out ads in, some of the, I could probably take out an ad space in like a Sci-Fi magazine somewhere and hope that it was worth it. I am doing Amazon does like a Kindle advertising thing that I'm doing, but like I said, I haven't seen any real sales directly from that. But it's only been up for a couple weeks now, so maybe it's the kind of thing that over time it will slowly start to turn into something. I don't know. I'm learning. If you guys have any advice, marketing for self-publishing, I will take it. So,
well, I think coming on the show here is definitely a step in the right direction.
Yes.
We'll help.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, this is probably huge for me, so I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
No problem. And why don't you tell us about your website? You've got a lot of interesting articles on there. I actually picked up some of the stuff you referenced earlier. I had read in your articles on there. So,
okay. Well, it's just ZachWinderl.com. I call it the literary busker because I tried to be clever and I thought it was funny. But it's basically just, kind of my ramblings. I joke and say it's, it's the stuff that falls out of my head, I'll have some short stories on there. I'll have some excerpts from my stuff. And then, if something catches my fancy and I think it relates to writing, or I think it relates to, a book I've read or movies that are coming out, I'll write about it. And part of it is I just, I kind of want to, get stuff out there and engage people a little bit. And I love it when, when I get some comments and stuff. And, a couple of my biggest one was, I wrote, it was a while ago, I wrote a post about Star Wars and whether they should stick to the canon or whether it was, the new movies were good or bad. And I got, several people that kind of jumped into that discussion, some of them a little more heated than others, but, but I like doing that. I like it when we can engage in discussion and talk about stuff. And so, like I said, my ramblings, musings, whatever you want to call them, are just kind of my thoughts on, stuff like that, especially in the sci-fi world, but, in the world in general, usually related to entertainment. I don't think that I, deviate too much from that. I don't want to get into politics and junk like that, because I've never, politics. I've never understood, artists, authors, movie stars, whatever, who get into politics or start talking a lot about politics, because it's like, dude, you're marketing yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
And whatever you say, you are instantly going to alienate half the people out there.
Exactly. No matter which side you're on.
So true.
It's like, why? It's like, I'll talk politics with my friends, over coffee. But, it's like, I don't want to put stuff out there because, what's mine is mine. And I'd rather just write stories and talk about stories. And, I'd rather entertain people. I would rather have people, enjoy their time with me than, than not, and realistically, from a marketing standpoint, I would hate to say something that, a potential buyer of my book who might like my book, but they're like, oh, he said this, I'm not reading that.
Yeah.
So I just don't get it. It just boggles my mind.
Yeah.
There was someone who said it perfectly once. He goes, don't tell me how to vote. You pretend for a living. He's talking about an actor.
Yeah, and like I said, they're entitled to. Everybody's entitled to their opinions and whatnot. Do your thing, but hey, with movie stars and stuff, it's like, just keep acting, because I enjoy your movies. But then you start spouting stuff off, and I'm like, oh man, you ruined it.
Yeah, I agree. Are there any other types of stories kicking around in your head that you hope to write that may not be space westerns?
Well, I don't know. I tend to lean towards science fiction. It tends to be what comes out, mainly because I feel like with sci-fi, you just have more freedom than any other genre. It's like and any genre can fit into science fiction if you wanted to. It's like you can write a science fiction romance if you want, or a science fiction mystery or whatever. But if you're writing a 20s noir detective novel, and all of a sudden they have a blaster, you're like, what the no, you ruined it. So, but with sci-fi, I have the freedom to go wherever I want. And I have a couple short stories that are, just kind of general fiction. I have some short stories that are kind of like zombie apocalypse. I'm not crazy into horror, mainly because I kind of lack the ability to write scary stuff. I've tried a couple times, and like I have a buddy who's like big time into horror movies and stuff, and I let him read it, and he's like, no. I was like, okay, I'm burying that. That's going in the archives. I'm not gonna try that. So it's just not my thing. I know where my weaknesses are, and but at the same time, I will write whatever kind of comes out of my head. So I'm not gonna pigeonhole myself and say I will only write science fiction. Because like I said, I've written some, kind of just general fiction, gen fiction. I don't know what you call it.
Like a drama?
Just about, what?
A drama?
I guess kind of like a short story, just about, kind of a kid growing up, and facing some tough stuff at home. And I wrote that, and, that's definitely not science fiction. It's, it's about a kid who, has an abusive father, and, he's sitting on the beach trying to decide, what am I doing? Am I going to stay here and let him, continue this? Am I going to do something else with my life? And that was the story. It was flash fiction, so it was only like 3 pages long, but it was definitely not science fiction. So it's in there somewhere, I guess.
What sorts of movies and TV shows do you watch?
Well, I am pretty open when it comes to movies. I do enjoy science fiction, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not pigeonholed to that. When it comes to TV, I tend to watch, I watch TV with my wife a little bit at night. I don't watch a ton of stuff on my own, because if I sit there by myself watching TV, about 10 minutes in, I'm just like, I should be writing.
Yeah.
And I get that like super guilty, like I can't do this. I'm kind of like all over the place. Like I just went back and watched the original Cowboy Bebop a couple weeks ago. So I like anime. I like movies in general. I grew up with my parents. Both my parents were college professors. My mom was a drama professor, and my parents would team teach it was like a film appreciation class every year, and so like they went and saw a ton of movies. So I would go with them. Yeah, growing up, we would go see probably 2 movies a weekend, just because they stayed on top of everything, and we watch everything from foreign films to actions to comedy, everything out there. We'd watch, and so I don't really have anything that okay. You guys are probably going to be mad at me, but the one thing that I'm really not crazy about is I'm not crazy about like really gory horror movies.
Oh, we're not mad at you.
I can understand. We're kicking you off the show now.
Get out. Just get out now. No.
Not mad, just disappointed. No, I'm kidding.
I can totally understand.
I enjoy like kind of scary thrillers. I enjoy kind of suspenseful things. I've just never been huge into the like over the top gore, I think is what it is.
Yeah.
Which like I said, I have one of my best buddies. He's big time into that thing. That's his thing. But like one of my all time favorite movies is Alien. Love that movie.
Nice.
Which sci-fi, but it's would you call it a horror, or is it just like a monster movie? I don't even know where you put it.
To me, it's a sci-fi horror.
Yeah, because it definitely is scary. Especially the first one. When like the old school, like, what the hell are we looking at? I don't know. I saw a little bit of a tail. What is it? And it's just funny because like I actually watched it with my daughter, and she was kind of underwhelmed, I guess. I mean, not completely, because I definitely talked to her ahead of time, and I was like, okay, you have to remember that this was when did that come out? Like 79?
Yeah,
79. So I was like, when this came out, this was like cutting edge special effects, and so I showed her, some clips from other movies at the same time, and it's like, oh my gosh, there was some bad stuff, and compared to like everything else at the time, Alien was just like mind blowing. And so we watched it, and she liked it. But like I said, compared to all the CG junk out there today, you lose some of that. But that is one of my kind of classic favorite sci-fi. The first and second ones, just I loved them. And I loved that they were different.
Yeah.
I loved that the first one was just more like that suspense, scary, and the second one was that kind of like, Space Marines were going to go and like kick butt. And I loved it. I mean, I remember as a kid running around playing Space Marines because we had seen, we'd watched Aliens in 3rd grade, and we were like, it's awesome, so. But
that's so cool. That's so cool. Well, Zach, what have you got coming up for your next book or books?
Well, I'm working on book 3 right now. I don't have a title, but I'm laughing and calling it Things Fall Apart. Because everything's been in the first 2 books, everything's gone kind of smoothly. I mean, not super smooth, because they definitely have their problems. But like I said, somebody gets shot in the 3rd book, so it's like, uh-oh. But I'm about 2/3 of the way through the first draft of that right now, and I'm hoping to have it, edited and ready to roll by next summer. So that is where I am. That's what I'm working on. Book 3, title yet to be determined, and it's flowing. It definitely is.
That's awesome.
I'm kind of scared of it, but it's flowing.
Well, since we've got time, till next summer, why don't you tell the audience where they can find you and your books online so they can catch up?
Okay. Well, as I said, my website is zachwinderl.com. and you can find all of my musings there. You can also find links to my Amazon page, which is where you can buy both of my books in physical or ebook copies, and they're both available. Through Amazon. You just search Zach Winderl or Adam and Go, and it'll pop right up.
Excellent. Well, Zach, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You've got an open invitation to come back again to promote your next book, or just talk about whatever you want to. If you want to come on and talk about sci-fi movies, we can certainly do that.
All right, that'd be great. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast.
Awesome.
All right.
Yeah, thank you.
So that was great, huh? He's a nice guy.
He is a nice guy, and I really enjoyed hearing his process. I mean, I know we've often talked to composers and directors and screenwriters, but it was nice hearing from someone of a different medium discuss their process, and it sounds like he has found something that really works well for him, and I'm glad to see that.
Yeah. I agree too, and I felt bad. I didn't get a chance to read his books yet. I have them. I just got them the other day, so it was kind of too late. But I am definitely going to read them, and I recommend that the listeners check him out. We'll have all his links in the show notes, and support this independent author who's doing well. We want to see more of these kind of things out there. So,
absolutely,
yeah. Okay, folks, thanks for joining us today for our awesome interview with Zachary Winderl. You can send your feedback to thenisnow42@gmail.com. You can also join in the conversation at our Facebook Then Is Now podcast group.
Then Is Now podcast is a proud member of the Dorkening Podcast Network, so be sure to check out the other great shows there at thedorkening.com. And you can find me at storiesmotion.com. I'm also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Stories in Motion. You can also visit our website at havenpodcast.com, where you'll find our sister show, The East Meets the West, in which we discuss Shaw Brothers films and spaghetti western movies. And while you're there, click on the Patreon and TeePublic links and get some exclusive stuff.
That's right. And Then Is Now is also on YouTube, so please visit youtube.com/user/UncleDeath1 to get the latest videos as well as other fun videos. And please subscribe to our YouTube page and be sure to hit that little bell there and share the video versions of our podcast with your friends to get them to subscribe as well. Don't forget to go wherever you download your podcast from and leave us a great review so that more listeners can find us. You can find us on all the podcasting apps, especially the big three, iTunes, Spotify, and Stitcher. Class dismissed.
The This Now podcast is intended for entertainment, educational, and informational purposes only. Sounds, music, and clips played during this podcast are the property of their copyright holders. All original content is copyright Jupiter Media.
For more shows like the one you just heard, check out the Dorkening Podcast Network at thedorkening.com.